Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Plenty of Newcastle United content coming your way that you won't see anywhere else on our social media channels. We appreciate the support. It's Andrew Musgrove here, joined by Aaron Stokes. And if you're regular listeners to our Monday show, you'll know that on Monday I made the case that Jacob Murphy should start for Newcastle United on Sunday against Wolves. It provoked a lot of debate on social media. Thank you for getting involved and talking about it. I put it out on Tuesday morning as well, and plenty of you guys got in touch to say whether you agreed or disagreed. And that's firstly where I want to start, because I haven't changed my mind at all. Neither has Aaron on disagreeing with me. The reaction, Aaron, to that point, though, was rather down the middle, which surprised me because I thought I would have been in the minority.
Yeah, I'm going to be completely honest. I thought exactly the same. I thought, when you made the comment the other day, even though I'd had a couple of people already text me after last weekend's game saying a similar thing, that the reaction, as you say, has been pretty much split down the middle. For me, as we'll obviously go into, I don't think it's probably the right game for him to start. I think there's probably better options out there. But I think, look, based off the action we've had this week after the pod, I think there's certainly an argument that a lot of people wouldn't be too surprised or disappointed if he did start against Wolves.
So let me just explain why I said Miguel Almiron should be rested, not dropped, rested, and why Jacob Murphy should come in for him. I just feel like Miguel Almiron could do with a bit of a rest. He's obviously been Newcastle's goal scorer this season. He's exceeded all expectations. The Miguel Almiron fan club has grown out of control with the memberships, not including John Gibson. But I just feel like he's run out of steam a little bit, and you've got two very winnable games here. So maybe just rest him against Wolves. The next game against Forest on the Friday, you start him again, hopefully with a full tank. And I feel really, Wolves aren't best defensively, and I feel like there's a good chance that if you put a winger in who hasn't played much game time, isn't all that tired, we could see the benefits here. And I think Jacob Murphy, his cameo performances against Manchester United in the final, against Manchester City the week after, he just looks like the only man not scared to shoot. And I think Newcastle on such I don't want to use the word desperation, but I'm going to. They're at a stage now where the goals just aren't coming. Nothing they try is coming off. And I just think Jacob Murphy just doesn't seem to have a fear. He likes, the effort against Man United in the final, very close. Against City, he's putting crosses into the box. He just seems the only man willing to really do something. I don't know whether it's because he hasn't been in the team all that often and maybe the confidence is low if you're starting every week and you're not scoring goals, if you're not winning. But for me, he starts. I've got some stats as well. Are you ready for some stats?
Hit me with them.
So he's played 598 minutes in the Premier League this season. Now he's had 34 progression carries. Now what that means is moves the ball forward towards the opponent's goal line at least 10 yards. Now he ranks 5th out of all the Newcastle players to have played this season. Bear in mind, those above him, other than Alison Maximum, have all pretty much played every single game. Carries into the box, 13. He ranks 3rd for that. Completed live passes leading to a goal. He's had 2. He ranks 9, but there's not much between him and the top. And then crosses, 24 crosses this season, which doesn't sound a lot, but he's ranked 4th for that. The ones above him, I think, are 25th, 26th, and then Kieran Trippier with a massive 234 crosses. I think that tells another story in its own way. But for me, I just think give him his opportunity this weekend. He's proved in those cameo performances that he can create a bit of danger, flashing the ball across the box. I think if Callum Wilson or Isaac had been on the end of the crosses, we wouldn't be having as much as debate to whether he starts it on Sunday.
Look, I don't think you can deny that he has had a bit of an impact the last couple of games. He's played well. Eddie Howe mentioned it, in the press conference this morning, that he's playing his way into contention. But for me, you've left 2 very big, some would say crucial stats out of that list. Conveniently or not, I'm not too sure, but how many goals and how many assists are we talking about? Not just this season, but over the last couple of years. And I think that's just why, for me, you've spent £40 million on a winger in January in Anthony Gordon, who, as you've just said, in your argument for Murphy, isn't tired, hasn't played too many games.
I'd start him on the left.
But then, do you drop Maxi? This is the thing for me. My ideal front 3, if they're all fit Sunday, we know Eddie Howe did say there's a couple of knocks this week. If they're all fit, for me, it's Maxi on the left. I'd move Gordon out to the right. I agree with you that Miggy probably does need a bit of a rest. And I'd play Isak down the middle now. How obviously said he probably isn't ready for 90 minutes, but I think he's got to start because, like Murphy's been knocking on the door. Going back to Murphy, he hasn't been fantastic. He's been good off the bench. He's been impacting games, lots of crosses, not afraid to have a shot. But I just think, is he really the man you look to and say that he's going to get Newcastle out of this slump? I think you've got to go with Gordon after the money you've spent on him in January. And look, I don't know whether he will drop Miggy because, Miggy and Wilson have played a lot of games. He's been very loyal to them. But I think you've got to go Gordon in that position over Murphy or Miggy.
But on Anthony Gordon, like I say, I think you would actually play him on the left. You say, would you drop St Maximin? But St Maximin didn't play against City anyway, so you're not really dropping St Maximin isn't really an issue for me. On Sunday, you play Gordon on the left, you play Murphy on the right, you play Isak up top. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. And I sit here saying play Jacob Murphy. Pretty confident Eddie Howe won't do that. That said, he was asked about Jacob Murphy today in his press conference, and he did say, I think he's done very well off the bench this year, but that's not to say that's his sole role. He's done well when he's come on in the last few games, and that's not lost on me. He's pushing to start, and there's no doubting his qualities. Now, I know I'm not expecting Eddie Howe in his press conference to say, yes, I'm going to start him. I'm equally not expecting him to say, no, he's going to be on the bench. He's not going to crush Jacob Murphy's hopes of starting on Sunday, nor mine. But what did you make of his comments? Do you think that's just Eddie Howe doing what Eddie Howe does? He's very good at talking everybody up and not crushing anyone's kind of aspirations to play in the first team.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think it's a vintage Eddie Howe answer. Not too vague and quite vague, but not too vague. While also not giving anything away. But look, I think there's a chance he could start, and although I probably wouldn't go for it myself, I do generally think Howe probably does believe it. As we touched on earlier, the fan reaction this week, a lot of people have noticed it. It's not just Eddie Howe. A lot of people are saying the same thing about the sort of impact he's had off the bench. But you've just got to go back to look at the impact that Maximin was having off the bench a couple of weeks ago. Look at the impact Isak's been having off the bench, and they're not guaranteed starters. So it's good to see that Murphy's given him a bit of an option. And Murphy's played a lot of minutes this season. A lot of them have been substitute appearances.
He's Eddie Howe's most used substitute.
But yeah, I mean, Eddie Howe does clearly trust him. I wouldn't be completely surprised to see him thrown in from the outset. But I would just like to see, as I've touched on, now that you've got them all fit, a lot of them are, Isak and Maxi are starting to find their feet a bit in this team. They've got a good combination together. I would just like to see that front three with those two and Gordon just unleashed. And I think Sunday, against a team, in the bottom half at St James's Park, I think it's the perfect opportunity.
So, but regardless, you would drop Miggy.
Yeah. Look, I think Miggy's had a fantastic season. His form is, no one's taken away his form from pre-Christmas, but I just think him and Wilson, it's becoming a little bit predictable. I think it's no harm at all to just give them a week or two out, and I think. Look, as I've said, Miggy, he does love to start Miggy on the right. But for me, he's just sort of fallen back into routine, hasn't he?
With the whole Miggy situation, why I would rest him for Murphy is that they're different kind of players. Now, I love Miggy. It's no secret that I love Miggy. He likes to run at the box. He runs at people. Whereas Murphy's more about getting the ball into the box. And there's this argument that Callum Wilson hasn't had the service. I don't tend to agree with that. He's not been in the box where he needs to be when the ball's been flashed across, in my view. But if you want to make that argument, then the one man who I think is looking more likely than anyone to put a good ball in the box, who doesn't look afraid to put a ball in the box, is Jacob Murphy. And I just think Sunday, I think he'll start Callum Wilson up front. And I think Callum Wilson needs a goal. He needed a goal last week. He needed a goal in the final. He needs a goal. But when there's been such a clamour to start Isak, and Eddie Howe will go with Callum Wilson, I think he needs a goal more than ever. And I think Jacob Murphy could just provide exactly what he needs.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, a lot of crosses into the box, a lot of front foot attack and play from him. But on the flip side, he's went and started Anthony Gordon at Manchester City away from home. Very, very tough baptism of fire from him in his first game as a starter, to then take him out of the team in a game that will probably suit him, whether you play him down the left or the right, I'm not too sure. I don't know. I just think it would be a very, very strange move to start Gordon. He's clearly started Gordon last week for a reason. He sees, on the training ground that there was a reason to start him over Maxi, who was the best attacker on the pitch in the cup final, had a fantastic game against Liverpool. For me, was unfairly dropped at the Etihad. It would be a big call for him to then say, actually, no, we're gonna take Gordon out as well after we took Maxi out and throw Murphy in. So I don't know, but look,
he's paid to make the big calls.
He's paid to make the big calls, and how refreshing is it that we're actually sitting here talking about potentially 4 or 5 different, combinations of front three starting. At the start of the season, you knew exactly who it was going to be. They couldn't, get any luck in terms of injuries at all. So it's a very, very good dilemma to have for Eddie Howe.
It certainly is. I feel like you're in a dilemma. Should we close the blinds or not?
I'm being blinded.
Blinded. We wanted St James's Park in the background, but I don't want Aaron to be blinded too badly. So there we go. Don't worry, when we open the blinds, St James's Park will still be there. I just want to read through some of the replies to the tweet that I put out. So I said, can Jacob Murphy kickstart Newcastle's season? And said, listen to the pod to find out why. I got a bit of grief for the word kickstart.
Poor choice of words there.
But, yeah, maybe it was though. I did hesitate when I initially wrote the tweet, but
restart the season. Probably better.
I think that's
But can you really kickstart a season when you're in 6th?
That's terminology. Let's forget about that. But anyway, let's look at some of the comments. So Simeo San Diego said he should start. Talk with Tyneside said we prefer a front three of Alan St. Maxim, Isaac and Gordon. Stephen just quite brutally just put no. So medium-sized Hal said he'd go with Gordon. Wouldn't be against Murphy. EIAIO said no. We did have our trusts. There were people who did favour. Let me just get to that. Phil said Maxi, Isaac and Gordon surely. Dave said the last 2 games when he's come on, he's looked okay. Clark said always have him in my squad. We need characters like him, black and white through and through. Paul said arguably the best athlete we have in that position. Decent technically, not afraid to shoot, and perfect attitude. I'd like to see Murphy, Isaac and Gordon as a front three with Maxi in a free role, Bruno and Joe in the middle. So there, we did have some people favouring it, but we had loads of comments. Dan quite brutally said he's not good enough, simple as, only good for cameos. Newcastle North Wales said I agree with you on that point. But I mean, to be fair, the large part of the comments were going with your selection. But I look, start him. Honestly, on Monday on the podcast, right, when Murphy set up one and scored the winner, I'll be proved right.
And I'll owe you.
We did say, what did you say, Nandos?
If he starts, I'll buy you Nandos. If he scores,
there was cake mentioned.
I'll bring a cake in for the pod on Monday.
It's just it is a big game. Look, Newcastle's season has been unbelievable so far, but it's tailed off. And I think they've still got a massive chance to be in the top 4. It is in their hands. Mm-hmm. 2 games in hand on Spurs. Spurs just are somehow 4th, despite having a proper topsy-turvy season. This is in Newcastle United's hands. Now, the tried and tested isn't working. Newcastle, unfortunately, everyone's form has dipped at the same time, which makes it very hard to pick up points. I just think it's time to try something a little bit new. Eddie Howe clearly likes Jacob Murphy. Now, is that because he thinks he can rely on him off the bench? Is it different to start him? And a lot of people's argument would be he's not a player that you start. He's an impact sub.
And I would be sort of leaning towards that. I think, going back to the very first point I made, I don't think he adds enough in front of goal. I don't think he scores enough. He doesn't assist enough. I don't think anybody would be disputing that, even himself. I agree that the combination isn't working at the minute. That's why I'd take both of Miggy and Wilson out, if not just one of them. But
you just got to get the ball in the box. I've been so frustrated in like the last 3 or 4 weeks when they've got into positions and the ball hasn't got in the box. They seem very hesitant for some reason to put the ball into the box. It either goes backwards, sideways, but it doesn't seem to go in the box as often. But when Murphy's on the ball, he seems to only have one idea in mind, and that is we'll get the ball in the box. And if Callum Wilson's in the right position, if it's Isak in the right position, you know, if it falls to one of them, and you know Wilson did have that chance, not from Murphy cross admittedly, but you know we need more of that into the box, and you know if Murphy supplies it, it's down to the strikers to knock it in.
But do you think if we're sat here Monday and he started, let's just say he starts Murphy Sunday, and Murphy has an absolute stinker, all his crosses are off target? Do you not think there's going to be a case of massive hindsight where, you know, a lot of people are going to be saying, well,
The hindsight's a wonderful thing.
He's had two good cameo appearances off the bench. Let's not sugarcoat anymore. They were good. He didn't score. He didn't assist. Yes, he made them look better. He put in some, you know, very, very dangerous balls in the box. But for me, that just is not enough to say, right, he gets thrown back in from the outset. But this isn't a new player that we're just suddenly thinking, oh, he could really be a game changer. And look, this is no disrespect to Jacob Murphy. He's a fantastic squad player. He's very, very good off the bench. He's very athletic. I just don't think he's got enough to change the game. I don't think he's got enough, nowhere near enough as Maxi. And I just think Gordon...
What has Maxi done in the last few weeks? Now, don't get me wrong. His performance in the final was decent.
Best player against Liverpool.
Okay, I agree. I agree with that. But then that's one good game and one average, decent game in the final. Do you know what I mean? So does your argument not apply?
I think he's done more off the bench in recent games when he wasn't starting than Murphy has. Very, very good off the bench when he came on at Southampton in the semi-final. He played his way back into contention 100%. I think he'd done enough to start. As I said, I think it was very unfair that he was dropped at City. And I just think, yes, fair enough, there was some, you know, positive replies about Jacob Murphy, but if you ask Newcastle fans, does he start with a Maxi? I don't think anybody is saying yes.
Well, that's where we need you guys, because I want to know in the comments, we want to know in the comments whether you would indeed play Jacob Murphy on Sunday against Wolves. We really want to know your thoughts. Thank you to everyone on social media who's already got involved. But let us know in the comments here on YouTube whether you would start Jacob Murphy and who would he replace in the team. It's fair to say I've not persuaded Aaron it's the right call. Eddie, if you are watching, hopefully I've persuaded you it's the right call. But of course, you watch them day in, day out in the training pitch, so you'll know much more than me. But do you know what? I'm looking forward to me Nandos on Monday after Jacob Murphy starts and then scores the winner. Nandos and cake.
I wouldn't hold your breath on it, but yeah, look, a bet's a bet. I'll honour it.
Well, guys, thank you very much for tuning in to the Everything is Black and White podcast channel. As we said right at the start, hit that subscribe button. There's going to be loads of new content coming your way. And head over to chroniclelive.co.uk to keep up to date with all the latest Newcastle United news.